I just assumed that he was guilty. The fleeting sound bites that I did hear talked about a massive number of accusers and talked about really scary sounding charges. So when I saw Daniel's tears, I just assumed that they were the tears of someone who had been caught. I have the diametrically opposite view of what happened. That's because I opened my mind to this shocking possibility that no, he didn't do what he was accused of. And people automatically assume that if DNA is on something, some body part, some incriminating item that was in an accused person's possession or in their house, that something horrible must have happened, some crime must have occurred. And as the DNA expert that we featured in the piece explained patiently and with scientific objectivity, that is not the case. And it is a huge mistaken assumption on the part of jurors or prosecutors or detectives that you can automatically state unequivocally that DNA evidence equals a crime. I don't think that the window of opportunity for covering the story is closed. I mean, we've got a number of news hooks here, not just today's anniversary, not just the evidence that we've broadcast now and are presenting. I also did a companion print investigative piece for my syndicated newspaper column that I made available on my website that is on a number of my clients, my media clients' websites, as well as Conservative Review. That's a starter piece to me. It's really just the tip of the iceberg for anyone who's actually curious about whether these accusers' stories held up in the court of law, let alone the court of public opinion. I want the local and state media here to seize that opportunity. There are no egos involved here. The police department spokesperson for Oklahoma City tried to denigrate our work product as, quote, a business project as opposed to journalism. I would think that every journalist in this state would be questioning what that police department spokesman didn't want them to know. Because if you simply dismiss everything we've done because we happen to charge people money for a product, well, what does that say about how they treat the other local media in Oklahoma City or in the state? Every one of those operations is a for-profit company, right? You pay for your newspaper subscription. There's advertising on the local TV stations and radio stations. Why is what we put together any less legitimate than what they're consuming? And again, I have to come back to the fact that it's not about the source of the questions, that it happens to be crtv.com, this unknown out-of-state quantity. It's not about the tone. It's not about the volume. It's about questions. I would hope that this would ignite a spark in some enterprising journalist to take a look at the evidence. Yeah. I think that it's sobering when you think about a man behind bars for a nearly 3-century sentence because of a need to satiate this appetite for a scapegoat, because of what I consider moral cowardice, incomplete and incompetent policing. You don't have to believe me. I don't care what your political ideology is. The search for truth transcends partisan and ideological lines. I don't know what the political makeup of the audience was here at Enid, or when we go to Seattle, which is, a much more far left part of the country, or Houston or Denver, wherever we're going. At some point, it's just about humanity, it's about the belief in fairness in our criminal justice system.
My question to you is, do you yourself believe he is 100% innocent of everything charged, or do you think that he was railroaded? Do you think there wasn't enough evidence that he should be in jail for what he's in jail for, that possibly he could have committed or done something that he shouldn't have done?
Yeah, that's a great question. It takes time for people to gather all of this information and then dissect it all, test it against their experience, test it against their assumptions and their own biases and the framing in which this trial occurred. And I didn't switch my opinion, because remember, I just said that initially I just assumed he was guilty like everybody else who could consume those sound bites did. But after spending as much time as I have and interviewing the police detectives and also interviewing the other side, I mean, we featured Grace Franklin of the Oklahoma City Artists for Justice in the piece. And I considered all of that, and only after doing that, only after the time that I spent with family and talking to Daniel himself, did I arrive at my conclusion. I'm not out there demanding that people have this knee-jerk response based on their preconceived notions of police officers or the racial climate in which it occurred. I thought Brian's answer in the Q&A about how he arrived at his own conclusions was very revealing. I mean, he was open and upfront and honest about saying, I thought he did something, just like these cops were saying. But for him, after he saw all of these accusers' videos, after he understood the way in which the police officers cajoled and coached so many of these accusers into their stories, which that piece alone, I think, raises reasonable doubt. And remember that the standard is beyond a reasonable doubt. If I'm in the courtroom, I don't have to prove that he's innocent, just that there's reasonable doubt. How can you watch the two shows and not come away with saying, yes, there is? I mean, we can quibble about how much, how high that mountain or molehill is, but it's there. That is the standard by which we're supposed to judge whether somebody is guilty or not.